Thanks for all and welcome. I really appreciate the effort for CPA, the doing for the peace, and the co-chair all the way from Vancouver. Welcome in this our presentation and conference. We appreciate that. My name is Rafiq. I am from Kashmir, where terrible crime have been going on since 1947 against innocent Kashmiris, including the rape of women. Earlier this year, a new country, South Sudan, emerged on the world map after a referendum in which the people of South Sudan voted. In 2003, East Timor became an independent country after 200 East Timori were killed by Indonesian troops. Australian rushed in troops to drive the Indonesian army out and allow the East Timori to become independent. Why have the people of Kashmir not received the same level of support when their suffering is far greater? Indian crime against innocent Kashmiri, as you saw in few clips. Our next speaker will share you some more, but first let us address the question of terrorism. Terrorism is not a new phenomenon in the world, but after 9/11 it assumed new dimensions and have been given different meaning depending on the perspective of the party using it. What is referred to as the war on terror need to be understood properly. Is this a real war on terror, or there is something behind on it and the root causes of terrorism? Despite wild claim, there was no weapon of mass destruction found in Iraq, yet the country was attacked and destroyed. Why? We live in a strange world, country that make the most destructive weapon of war claim to be champion of peace and human rights. Why spending billion on weapon of mass destruction when there are billion of people starving? Why are children being killed in war zone? Why are these war being waged? Anyone with even a limited understanding of the global situation would immediately see that these wars are launched for natural resources, especially gas, oil and mineral. That is what we saw, we witnessed in Afghanistan, Iraq and Kashmir. Why people are not giving the chance to live in peace? Kashmiri are struggling for peace and for their right of self-determination according to UN resolutions. Kashmiri believes in peace and justice. Kashmiri condemns terrorism in all its forms anywhere in the world. Kashmiri are the victim of Indian state terrorism. Like many other international disputes, the Kashmir issue remain a victim of global power politics. Double standards are involved. Resolution of the Kashmir dispute is delayed further. It will bring more problem and complication to the generation to come.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. And the video you just saw earlier, clips of what's happening in Kashmir. So let us address the issue of Kashmir. In order to understand the problem of Kashmir, We must go to its roots. It is one of the sad facts of life that many problems in the world can be traced to British colonial intrigue. Kashmir, or to give its proper name, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, is also the result of British colonial intrigue. In 1947, when British colonial rule was about to end in India, the two major communities, Hindus and Muslims, agreed to partition India into two separate states, India and Pakistan. I will not go into details about why this became necessary, but the formula agreed between leaders of the two communities was that areas where the Hindus were majority would form part of India. Areas or provinces where Muslims were a majority would become part of Pakistan. In typical divide and rule fashion, there were also a number of princely states where the British had imposed Hindu rulers on the majority Muslim population and imposed Muslim rulers where the majority was Hindu. While this worked well for British colonialism, at the time of their departure, this arrangement became a source of major problems. There were a number of princely states, such as Hyderabad and Junagadh, etc., where the Muslim rulers wanted to join Pakistan, but Indian leaders said since the majority population is Hindu, they must become part of India. Leaving nothing to chance, the Indian army was dispatched to occupy these states. In Jammu and Kashmir, India turned the logic on its head. Jammu and Kashmir had an overwhelming Muslim majority, but a Hindu ruler. The population naturally assumed that they would become part of Pakistan. When their ruler hesitated in making an announcement, the people rose up in revolt. Their ruler fled the capital, Srinagar, and while in exile, he signed the state's provincial accession to India under pressure from the Indian government. Again, the British were involved in this sordid affair. Lord Mountbatten, the last British viceroy, was still the viceroy of India. He played his dirty role in convincing the ruler, called the Maharaja, to declare his state as part of India. This was completely illegal and unacceptable to the people of Kashmir. Their rebellion engulfed much of the state, and as it became clear that they would take over the whole state, India rushed its army to occupy the state on the dubious pretext of restoring law and order. The dispatch of Indian army to Kashmir forced Pakistan to send its army also into Kashmir, resulting in war between the two countries. As Indian troops were dispatched to Kashmir on October 27, 1947, Indian Prime Minister Nehru sent a telegram to Pakistani Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan, assuring him that India's move was motivated entirely by aiding the Kashmiris in this emergency and was not intended to influence the accession of the state of India. When a ceasefire was declared, the Indian army controlled 2/3 of Kashmir, while Pakistan the remaining 1/3. The division of the control not only divided the states, but also pulled families apart. India gradually started to backslide on its pledges made to Pakistan, to the people of Kashmir, and to the world community through United Nations Security Council resolutions. India and Pakistan have fought 3 wars over Kashmir, in 1947 to 48, 1965, and in 1971. Another war has been averted so far because both countries have nuclear weapons. And in the event of war, the use of such weapons cannot be ruled out, especially if 1.2 million Indian troops were to overwhelm the much smaller Pakistan army. Kashmir's total population is 13 million, about 1/3 of Canada's total. This is more than the population of number of countries in the world today. Indian violations and crimes. Not only is India in violation of Security Council resolutions on Kashmir, it is jeopardizing regional peace and security. India maintains 700,000 troops in Kashmir, the largest occupation army anywhere in the world. In the capital city, Srinagar, there are 300,000 Indian troops for a total population of 1 million. Thus, there is 1 Indian soldier for every 3 civilians. The paramilitary forces are the most unruly and guilty of the worst kinds of crimes against innocent civilians. Indian human rights violation in occupied Kashmir include indiscriminate killing and mass murders, tortures and extrajudicial execution, molesting and raping of women, oppression and suppression, rape, maiming of youth, and surgical pilfering of human organs for sale in India. Kashmiri youths killed in Indian army custody are buried in secret, unmarked graves. Since 1989, Indian occupation troops have murdered more than 100,000 civilians. At least 9,890 women have been gang raped. India uses rape as a weapon of war. There are at least 122,000 orphans as a result of Indian war on defenseless Kashmiris. There are grave concerns about the arrest and transfer of detainees to undisclosed destinations. Loss to property and homes is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Blatant violation of international norms by persistent refusal to allow international human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch to enter Kashmir under Indian occupation and civil liberties through brutal laws, such as the Prevention of Terrorism Act to put anybody behind the bars without any accountability. Desecration of places of worship in Indian occupied Kashmir. Educational institutes have been turned into arms depots by the occupation army. India refuses free access to international media. If India claims to be a democracy, why is it preventing international observers from determining the truth? India wants to suppress the Kashmiris' liberation struggle by military might, but such tactics have not deterred the people from pursuing their right to self-determination. If the world community fails to realize the gravity of the situation, the Kashmir problem may result in war, leading to South Asian nuclear catastrophe. India must adapt a realistic approach, take practical steps, and agree to a just and permanent resolution of the dispute to save the lives of billions of people in the region. It must honor the promises made by the rulers in the international community, and more importantly, to the people of Jammu and Kashmir, to give them an opportunity to decide their own future. Therefore, the people of Jammu and Kashmir appeal to you, the participants of the CPA, to put your collective effort by standing with the voiceless Kashmiri people. Raise your voices and tell the truth to the world. Put pressure on the Canadian government to press India to honor UN resolutions on Kashmir, restore human rights in Indian occupied Kashmir. Immediately release all detainees inside or outside Kashmir. Withdraw all occupation troops from Kashmir immediately so that the people of Kashmir can breathe freely.